Okay, Keavy Yunga, Edmonton Miotau Yunga, Inuit Sungu Yunga, Miki Yumi, Panatomi, Ilinya Katalawama, Haluna Holu Twinaukama. Okay. So hello everybody, thank you so much for coming out tonight. I'm not going to take very long because I want to get on to the main act. But I just want to thank you all so much for coming out, and I really just want to praise our first two writers, Norma and Jordan. I had the privilege of meeting, yes! I had the privilege of meeting both of them in class. Both of them submitted these amazing stories. Norma's was called Animaktak, and I don't remember what Jordan's title was. Was it Finding Home?
I think,
okay. And you know, sometimes when you come across something new and you just know this is going to be huge. I had that feeling with both of them. So I'd say you have to remember these people's names because they're going to be huge, and I'm so proud to see you both here. So thank you for reading. And I really also want to acknowledge again Mr. Michael Kushigak. It's wonderful that you happen to be in town tonight with your lovely partner Jerry. So thank you so much for being here. And I just want to thank everybody who helped out to make tonight possible, running around with dishes and the like. Thank you all for helping out. I just want to say a few words about the book, Stories in a New Skin, Approaches to Inuit Literature. I wrote this book, it was originally a dissertation. I wrote this book because at the time it seemed to me that there was not a lot of conversations happening about Inuit literature. But one thing that we were hearing a lot about, and that we do still hear a lot about, is the North, constantly in the news. I think there are reminders around us all of the time that the world here in the South that we're living in, and that northern world that we see in the newspaper or hear about, these worlds are very much connected. They're connected through things like climate change. They're connected through the land claims agreements. They're connected through the policy decisions that are made that are affecting things like resource development, ideas around sovereignty. So I think sometimes we forget the extent to which those worlds are intertwined. And it seemed to me that stories, literature, and when I say Inuit literature, I mean not only writing, but also stories, songs, films, that those are wonderful ways for Inuit perspectives to travel. And so what I wanted to do was to think about ways in which those stories could travel into the space that I was living and working in, well, not really living in, but the university, the academy. I thought those conversations were important. But it seemed to me that if we're interested in the project of indigenizing, and that's kind of a buzzword lately, that it's not enough just to import the content, the Indigenous content, but that we also have to think about methods, how we're going to deal with these stories, the way that we're going to treat them. So I was really interested then in looking for an Inuit literary criticism. There's a lot of talk about this concept in Nunavut, Inuit Kayimayatukhangit, or traditional knowledge. And it was very apparent to me, as it has been to many other scholars, that traditional knowledge includes knowledge about literature, and that can be found in abundance when you check out the literature. So in this book, I write about many different genres: the Unikat, the life stories, stories from experience, the Unikaptuat, the longer stories that are kind of older a lot of the time. There's fiction, there's autobiography, there's song, there's films. And in all cases, I think they have a tremendous amount of potential to challenge what the university does, the way that we think about stories and literature. I'll just say a little bit about this cover image here. This print, which Norma also had up on her slideshow there, is by Iqaluit TV, and it's called Shaman Revealed. And it shows a fox, or a woman really, who is unzipping her human skin using a zipper and revealing that she's a fox underneath. And so this is a reference to the story of a fox wife that's part of the Keavy cycle. And I found many different stories like this, and I began to think a lot about those ideas of skins, the way that the beings who were putting on and taking off these skins could use them to sort of infiltrate different spaces. Even what we do today, going out in the cold and putting on, a parka, it was a similar sort of thing. And I began to think about some of the concepts that I was familiar with, like the term literature as being a kind of skin that would fit strangely, but that could be used to allow some of these stories to infiltrate my consciousness. But then after a while, I began to think about it going the other way as well. I began to think about the way in which folks in the university here, in my English classes, the way that we also have to learn a thing or two about adaptation, about the borrowing and putting on of skins, especially as we're interested in that project of connecting Indigenous knowledge to the Academy. So I think that these stories have a lot to teach us about the relationship between different worlds and the ways in which they can be dangerous, problematic, but also about the ways in which they have a lot of potential. So I just want to thank the University of Manitoba Press. I'm not going to read, even though Gregory Schofield got very angry with me for not reading last time, but I'm not going to read. Instead, I want to turn it over to our main act of the night. I only met Mosha just yesterday, but I'm already really astounded by his wisdom and also his courage, and I'm just really grateful that he could come out, though he's not feeling 100% to be with us tonight. So you guys are in for a treat. So thank you very much. Put in the mic.
Okay. I am not going to start with some poetry. I'm just going to start by acknowledging some people and the wonderful, kind of ways that they've touched my life. Keavy, first, I want to thank you for inviting me out here. Christine, are you here? Yeah. Oh, hi, for inviting me when you didn't have money. But I know that I appreciate the fact that my work has been paid attention to for a little while. I started writing poetry after a couple of, I wouldn't say failed careers. I mean, I did them fairly well. I was a computer technician. And then I went back to school in Nanaimo, BC, creative writing program. Realized I'm a creative writer, I don't need to go to school to learn how to do that. But after that, I had the privilege and honor of working with Josie at ITK and writing, ghostwriting for him, and having the opportunity in his last months at ITK, which ended up being some of my only months there, of working face to face and having the knowledge kind of passed a little bit from Josie Kusalak, who is Michael's brother. And he was a wonderful man, and I just wanted to acknowledge the fact that when I was at ITK, he really helped me to realize what I wanted to do, and this literary stuff is really getting a little choked up. It's a little bit a legacy of my time at ITK. It helped me realize I'm not a bureaucrat. I can't sit in an office. I can't be in front of a computer. And so I was able to kind of transition out of that and into this life of destitution and artistry.
And fame.
I'm not kidding, guys. Don't be a writer. No, okay, no, I am kidding. Write wonderful, beautiful things. All of you. I'm going to start with a couple of short pieces that I wrote. They're literary pieces. You will see that there will be a transition from these short pieces to some more, so totally different from everything else that's gone on to this point, with some rap and hip-hop action. So, until the walls come tumbling. Poetry is not artifice. Perhaps more appropriately, poetry is edifice. Four walls around words whose meanings rock inside on creaky wooden chairs, and whose meanings you see only as shadows cast against translucent shades, and whose meanings you hear only in bites through cracked windows. And I am the doorman at night, holding the brass handle, inviting the light outside. This one is called Consummation. The gray Honda crouched, engine running, windows foggy. My pace picked up, gaze went low, embarrassed by unfortunate timing. Don't look, show respect to the moisture-tinted shadows in the dark. I couldn't know there were no sweethearts in that early morning mist. Only a single man and an invisible lover who swallowed him whole. Okay, so those This one is a little more upbeat. This one I wrote for my, where's Richard? Hang on, there, you moved. I wrote this for the love of my life. She's a beautiful woman who is in Ottawa waiting for me to come home. And it's called A Poem in the Language of Stars and Seawater. Two bolts of fabric smooth themselves to the ends of sensation. Ripples and dimples of light mark serendipitous moments in time. Here, the sparkle of a smile. Here, a glint in the eye. In the black sea, white speckled night skies appear and disappear. The ocean does not reflect the dark firmament. At the edges they touch and are one. The same changing constellations are not mimicked by one from the other as they are sewn and unsewn. Each is a celebration of the other, and they are synchronized. So thank you for that, listening to those. Keavy made a brief mention of the fact that I'm not 100%, but I'm from Ottawa, so I'm out here for a few days, and I'm really going to make the most of my opportunity to share everything I have in my arsenal with you. So to transition away from that lit page poetry, I'm going to get some water, and then I'm going to do a couple of spoken word pieces. Yeah, these were written specifically to be performed in this way in front of people. In fact, they were written to be judged in what I ended up considering poetic WWF. Like it's really this slam poetry. It's it's competition, and it's all about bluster and being big and loud, and it's not my style. I'm as I say, and I don't know how other Inuit feel about the word Eskimo, but I use it. I've taken it as much as I can, and I'm using it for my purposes. So, as an Eskimo, as an Inuk, I'm quiet, I'm reserved, and I don't like to draw a lot of attention to myself. So this spoken word stuff was actually a way to get over that, so I could feel comfortable doing this. This piece is called Ancient Patience. Some of you may have heard it. If you look back to the north about 1,000 years ago, to where the Atlantic ice fields battled the granite shield of the Arctic coast, you'd find a man staking his claim to a land that just doesn't seem inhabitable, an Eskimo. A patient hunter who stood unmoving for hours, crouched over small bumps in the ice, subtle sealed breathing holes, wicked winds pushing the temperature back down from the comfort of 20 below, waiting for a freezing breathe out to break the crystal white flatness of snow, facing the low sun so his shadow fell back, away from his goal. Mouth closed, breath low because less movement, less sound meant that night's dinner was more likely to show. Yet, sometimes that hunter stood till the moon rose before he finally shifted, breathed hard, and set off for home with nothing but cold toes, nothing to bloody his wife's arms to the elbows, nothing to warm the guts of 5 kids or silence the dog's moans. Nothing but the knowledge that the next day when he woke, to stand again over that hole, maybe, just maybe, a seal would finally show him his nose so his harpoon could come down to deliver its lethal blow. Or maybe, just maybe, no. It's that patience that allowed our people to settle down and call the Arctic our home. Thank you very much.